Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Devs episode 5, so full spoilers for the episode as always. This episode features Katie basically using the machine to look at various points in the timeline. This was kind of her flashback episode, but kind of in a unique way because of the context of how she's doing it.
Yeah, and some of it was more recent than others.
So yeah, some was basically alive. So some of it was live, sort of essential surveillance.
It was basically follow-up from where we ended last episode, which I guess technically is very slightly in the past from where she is now.
Well, technically she can look into the future as well, so it's entirely possible that one or two of these things might actually be like later in the day. I mean, it doesn't really matter. The point is that it's from the perspective, because you get the opening scene and it's kind of like, it's funny because we were just arguing last episode about possible alternate timelines, and like the first scene in this episode was essentially almost like different versions of the timeline overlapping with each other as we see Lily go around the house and the different people there. Now, admittedly, during this scene, I thought about this and I thought, oh, I think I'm kind of right here. We're seeing alternate timelines. However, I did also think to myself, like, yeah, well, this technically could just be like different parts of this timeline. This is like parts of the past. However, later in the episode, it confirmed that I was doing alternate timelines and I was right for sure. So I'll take the points.
Well, hang on now. I didn't say we wouldn't see alternate timelines.
I don't care. I
said
taking points.
Follow an alternate timeline. That is completely different.
Semantics.
No,
Semantics.
No. Absolute, completely different. And by the way, I had the exact same thought in the opening sequence. I was like, is this alternate timelines, or is it just showing us, various points overlapping?
Yeah. Well, later on,
then later with Katie, I'm like, okay, sure, I get it.
Funnily enough, that scene with Katie later on was really funny because I literally just watched this week's finale of Picard, and Alison Pill's also in that. There's a scene in the finale of Picard. This is not spoilers. If you don't watch Picard, don't worry. This is not a spoiler itself, but there's a visual of her at one point multiplying her head, and there's like lots of her head around the screen at the same time, and I laughed out loud because I'd watched this episode of Devs, and I was like, wait a minute, I've seen multiple scenes this week of Alison Pill duplicated around the place. It was odd.
There are worse things to see.
So yeah, so she's watching various things. We see the follow-up with Jamie and Keaton, which was not a straight up death. We were thinking it looked quite bad for him. Now, admittedly, it was quite scary for him. He was getting, dunked in the water. He was petrified. His performance, the actor, was really selling just how terrified he was of Keaton. Keaton essentially saying that, once the genie's out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. But then he gives the one example of when, everyone was sure that the Chinese government was going to fall because of the protests. And the Chinese government actually was able to squash this protest. They just killed lots of innocent people, and as a result, from there, are still in power, and they're one of the most powerful regimes on the planet. So,
classic China.
Yes, and he says, I'm the tank and you're the protester. So are we clear on what's going on? So he scares Jamie into not doing anything, although and threatens anyone he cares about. Of course, Jamie then calls his parents or his sister or whoever and gets them all to run.
Yeah, I think it was his dad. He was on the phone too, but he was, because he mentioned a place that him and his sister used to go on holiday.
Yeah, so they all kind of they don't know the real reason. They think it's a security breach. The NSA have told all the employees to tell us to their families, but that kind of sets that up because the end of the episode, and this is this weird thing where Katie's maybe becoming a bit more sympathetic, where we're not really sure if she completely sides with Forrest on everything as of yet. And the final shot of the episode, and it's one of those moments where you can kind of see it coming, but that's not a complaint. It's like the only way for this to end is for her to smile because she's happy about what's just happened. The final thing she sees in the episode is when she sees Lily, who's in a psychiatric hospital, who we barely see. We see her briefly at the start, just sort of lying there looking at flowers, but we never really go back to her in the hospital. It's not until the very end where Jamie, and I thought this was a nice touch, climbs through the window, because that's what she's been doing to him all season, and essentially picks her up, says we need to go, and takes her out the window, and it goes back to Katie, and she smiles because she's happy that they've, and we do see a glimpse of this moment that it seems like Lily dies at some point in the future. We see her crawling on the how do I describe this? The exterior of the interior of the cube.
Okay, yeah, no, that works.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was just trying to follow your description,
Yeah,
but yeah,
so
that
so
makes
so
sense.
so they're in like a building where there's like an outer cube and an inner cube where they all are. She's in the space between, crawling
Yes.
by the looks of it. From this visual, but obviously we're seeing all these full color flashbacks or maybe even present day visuals of people, and we set up last episode that I mean these could be variations. They may not always get the same answer, and it does start to play with that as the episode goes on. That's why we're seeing these alternate versions. Katie's, of course, is just as simple as maybe she walks this direction when she gets out of the building, or she walks that direction, or she drops her case, or she's rubbing her eyes, and it's just all these little minor variations.
Is these are the hairs that Forrest was describing, essentially.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's more extreme ones. And of course, Forrest himself, we see the accident, his wife and daughter dying in the car crash, which I thought was really well done, actually.
Yeah, I thought it was really effective as well, especially as it didn't start cutting to the various versions until after we'd seen his version play out in its entirety.
Yeah,
Essentially,
it says because he's in shock for a minute, and it's not until he starts going towards the because they're in the car on the way home. His wife's on the phone to him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'll go to the store after you've dropped off the daughter."
I'll see you in like 30 seconds or something.
Yeah, and then she gets hit by this other car, from the other side of the traffic, and it's honestly, obviously, we've all seen these scenes in movies and TV shows where someone's hit by a car's hit by a car, and this felt quite startling to me. It felt like it didn't frame it the exact same way that you usually see this done in. It kind of worked because of that. So, and it was a great visual of him going up to it, and like the version that didn't get hit by the car go past them and like arrive at the house, and have this other version of Forrest taking out his daughter at the back seat, and
Yeah. And then
stuff
as he
like
goes
that.
up to the car, you see all these variations on sometimes it swerves around like at the last second. Just all these just small touches, and some of them it still crashed, and some of them it doesn't.
Yeah, and it sets up this idea that because I think maybe when we started this show and Forrest was dead set against the multiverse, we kind of took that as okay, maybe that's the rules we're working with this show. But of course, it set up the multiverse, and this episode clearly defined kind of that he's trying to prove that it's not a multiverse because that'll make him feel better. Because that'll make him feel like he had no choice in what was going to happen. But if there is multiple versions and there's versions of him that still have his wife and daughter, then it means he's actually, Joe, I compare this to for comic book readers is that he's basically realizing he's in the dark multiverse as opposed to one of the proper Earths. Like, if you don't know what I'm talking about, that I'll just explain this as briefly as I can for the comic book people. Is that in DC Comics, they introduced this thing in the last couple of years called the Dark Multiverse, and it's basically versions of DC stories where the worst thing happened, and say, Superman never came back from the dead, and Lois went evil and started killing people, or the other versions like that. And the idea being that there's for every good outcome of a story, there's an equally bad one that happens in a world that's just doomed or whatever. And basically him realizing that he's one of the sad parts of the multiverse where he didn't get the happy ending, and instead of this other version of him getting a happy ending, is such a crushingly painful
It is
thing to imagine.
It's not that he doesn't believe in it, like we were maybe thinking at the start.
Yeah.
It's that he's outright terrified of it being real, because he can't live with himself with the guilt, even though it doesn't seem like he could have done anything differently. Maybe if he wasn't on the phone with her, who knows? But a lot of the versions that we see seem to start from the same point of them being on the phone, and it's just then variations that had nothing to do with him, right?
Yeah.
It was to do with her driving or whoever crashed or whatever.
But then you get into butterfly effect though, right? You get into like, okay, maybe it's not a decision in those 30 seconds that made a difference. What if it was something he did earlier that morning that meant she left a little bit later or a little bit earlier, and that's why she was coming home at a slightly different time? Or maybe like then you have the variations of the person who hit her. But what was that person's life like? What choices in that person's life were made in the last day? Or even it could have been the choice years ago that rippled and led to this.
This cascades so much.
Yeah. And then this ties into a scene with Katie where she's at this lecture. This is when she was, in the last couple of years of college, because she makes fun of the undergrads. So she's in postgrad right now.
Yeah.
She's at this lecture, and I can't repeat all of it. It was a lot. There was a lot of this did not pull punches. This lecture.
Technical gibberish is what I would like to call it.
But the points that it was getting across though did kind of hit. Like the scientific or science fiction ideas, I suppose that I should say. It was trying to kind of like poke at with this were really kind of hitting. It was basically this idea of how can these super particles exist in two places at once, and more importantly, once we kind of try to measure it, all of a sudden it's not in two places at once anymore, it's only in one. And there's a number of theories as to why this is. There's like, I think they mentioned like 5 different names that have got theories on this, at least in this scene alone.
I vaguely remember going over like 3 of these in A-level physics.
I never did physics in high school, so I never heard of this.
I did A-level physics. Well, I did a year of A-level physics before I decided to screw that. I screwed off all my A-levels after a year, so yeah, nothing personal against physics. But we went over these, in less detail, I imagined that they were. But so it wasn't like completely alien to me. The idea of it's these, I think, light particles that as soon as you observe them, completely change, and it's the act of observation that changes them.
Yeah, in fact, one of the theories tied into something that I said back in episode 2 or 3, one of the earlier episodes, about how whatever they were seeing through these visions of the past, like how much of it was them themselves kind of influencing it, because one of the theories brought up is, it's actually us, it's the human element that's affecting it, and that's why this is the way it is. And of course, the one that Katie jumps in with when she's berating the lecturer is, she says, yeah, but I can't remember the names, but like, the idea of the ever expanding tree, the multiverse, right, where all these timelines keep branching out over and over and over again until there's just too much. So this was clearly sort of laying out some of the ideas, and I kind of liked that all of these were brought up. There were the one that the lecturer was about to explain, we never really got to hear. The one when Katie interrupted her, there was kind of one she was about to go into, we never really got to hear that one, but
yeah, she says the name of it, and Katie's just like, oh, please, come on.
Yeah, so we could look it up, I suppose, if we wanted to. I'd have to go watch the scene again and get the names, because I can't remember them.
Yeah, but I don't care about physics that much, is the honest answer.
But all of this, I thought was well done, and even though there was a lot of jargon thrown around, and not all of it you're going to take in if you're not interested in this, or you don't, like, it's all completely new information. For me, it pretty much was, because I never did physics, but it does well enough at getting the key sort of ideas across of the theories behind them and behind the how it ties into the show. And Forrest follows Katie out, of course, and offers her to pay for the rest of her college and to offer her a job. And we don't get to hear what his offer is, but he's just, it kind of cuts ahead. But we see that Katie's watching this. She's watching other memories. She's watching their first experiment with the rat and a couple other items. And this was clearly them trying to just like create an image out of the machine. Yeah. And Forrest says, we'll keep expanding from beyond the object. So they end up building the whole room, and then they eventually see like Forrest watching, from the window.
Yeah, they do kind of point out like, hey, we're going to run out of memory at some point, but we can keep going until we do.
Yeah. And that's probably why they built an even bigger computer.
This was early days.
So yeah, all that stuff was super interesting and added a lot. It's kind of funny that after the cliffhanger from last week, I did not expect it to so heavily be removed from Lily and Jamie. Jamie had a couple of scenes, of course, which were very important, but I did not expect it to be so focused on Katie and to an extent Forrest. But Katie more than ever, because Katie's been the voyeur this episode, because she's watching all these things play out, we see her essentially by seeing Lily's relationship start with Sergei, right? We see them sort of meet for the first time and how they kind of fell for each other. They're kind of, honestly, if I have a complaint about this episode, is the scene where he tells her he's in love with her for the first time. I thought was a bit odd. It was this, they're watching like a sitcom or something on a laptop, and he pauses and says, "Oh, by the way, I'm in love with you."
Yeah, it's so casual and weird.
It was a very, and then the way she's at a deadpan says, "Well, that's the first time one of us has said that." Like, I'm sure he knows that. I'm sure he knew that before he said it. I mean, that's not. That felt like exposition for us. And honestly, we'd have gotten it from context. Like your reaction, him making that big deal out of this would have told us that. We don't need to hear that sentence.
Yeah, slightly overwritten.
Yeah. But what really got me though is that then she smiles and says, "I love you too." I was okay, fine. But then they just hit the spacebar again and keep watching the thing they were watching. I'm like, surely this is at least a kiss moment, if not sex. Come on. What? Just keep watching Friends.
I have to assume that whatever they were watching was pretty damn good. So no.
I always want to fantasize as to what they were like when they were watching like Mulholland Drive, and they're like, "No, we have to keep watching this. I can't not see the end of this movie." But it's got so many trippy themes. I have to tell you that I love you right now, because by the end of this movie, my brain may not be the same. I have to get it out right now. I thought it was really funny.
That would be quite funny.
But now, Katie watching all this, of course, is making her care about Lily. I mean, the idea that she has a conscience is probably already there, but just watching these key moments, seeing this innocent person that, because she sees, one of the first things she sees, of course, is the scene with the bathtub and Keaton torturing Jamie, and I feel like, her watching it, I think she is scared of it and she's petrified of it, and this is like, what are we doing to people? This is horrible. And that leads to a scene later where Keaton's basically telling them, like, hey, if the police do come, if this doesn't get contained, and I'm doing my best to contain it, but if this comes back in me, then I'm not going to prison. Like, I'm taking you two assholes down with me. Like, I'll sell you both to the authorities to make sure I'm in the clear.
I just love how blunt he is to, his boss Forrest, who's incredibly rich and could hire anyone to replace Ken, really, with the amount of money he can pay to someone. And Ken's just like, I'm good, I got this. Mm-hmm. That is a brave man.
Yeah, it's an interesting character thing, because I don't know what our perception of him was before this episode. Like, did we think he was loyal to Forrest, or was this just a job? I think I lean towards the job, but this definitely confirmed that this is purely employment for him. It's not.
I think it felt loyal in the scene where he went and visited Forrest, at home. And he was like, talk to about his car, like, hey, you can live better than this. That felt like it was coming more from a friend than an employee.
Oh, I don't know. I think I'd almost go the other way in that. I think him pointing that out to me, especially in retrospect, now that we've seen these scenes, kind of feels like this is someone who doesn't really know him or understand him, like making a comment on his life.
Oh, no, I get that now. I think at the time, though, it played like a friend. Like, he was kind of like, hey, come on, you gotta try and move on, sort of thing. Obviously, he doesn't understand him, and it's clear now. But that was in episode 1, maybe episode 2. I can't remember exactly. It was definitely early on, where it felt more formative for their relationship at that time. Whereas clearly, we were a little bit wrong on that.
Yeah. Well, you. What's this we?
I'm sure you would have agreed with me at the time.
You can't say you're sure you would have agreed with it. We never had that conversation. You can't tell me what I'd have said at the time.
In a different universe, we did.
Don't pull that shit in me. Well, that was actually one of my favourite things, actually, when Katie's arguing with him about, when she finally brings up in this trial that you're creating for yourself, and you're trying to prove that there's no multiverse because it'll make you feel better. One of the things she says to him that I thought was a really cool sort of moment was when she kind of says that the real world, no, actually, no, it wasn't that scene. Sorry, I'm telling a lie. It's in the scene with the lecture. It's the lecture scene. It's when the lecturer is basically saying, we can't be this, and Katie's like, no. Or she says all the math, proves this theory. All of the theories prove this theory, and then the person just says, but no, the real world doesn't know. The real world. I think I'm actually combining two scenes here. I think she says that to Forrest later, but the point that kind of starts this train of thought is in the lecture scene. I'm mixing two scenes here.
There is definitely that in the lecture scene where she says, she backs up her multiverse theory with all these ideas and evidence, and she goes, and it all she's like, and it all works, and the lecture's just like, but it doesn't fit into the real world. And
the real world is
very narrow-minded, isn't it, from a physicist?
Yeah. I mean, I suppose that's the physicist basically saying that, well, we can't perceive a multiverse, so therefore we can't just take that for granted.
Yeah, that seems really, really dumb for a physicist, because the whole thing of science is until it's proved otherwise, right? And if there's something that like every iota of evidence points towards something, maybe you should consider it. I don't know. Just don't just go, yeah, but that doesn't fit with everything else. Then maybe everything else is slightly wrong. It's happened before. They'll have to learn the lesson eventually.
Yeah. So I mean, that was pretty much the episode. I'm trying because honestly, this was a hard one to kind of remember because it didn't follow sequentially. It was very jumping around and doing different things. But as per usual, music was really on point. A lot of those themes, those sort of droning, kind of more relaxed themes.
Yeah. I like the general idea and irony of in Forrest's desperation to prove the past, and disprove the multiverse, may accidentally be the one to prove its existence.
Yeah, yeah. Which it was kind of pleasant to science really nicely. Like, so many things we have were discovered by accident or were invented by accident as a byproduct because they were trying to do something else. Penicillin being the most famous one I can think of. But like there were so many things where that's actually what I really like about the movie Primer. Is that they're not trying to invent time travel? They're trying to like create something else, and it's just a wait a minute. Did we just have a time loop in there? Like what happened? And then it's like I kind of like that. I like the accidental stumbling onto something because you're trying to prove something else. It feels very realistic to me, I suppose.
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, so that was really neat. But it was a solid episode. Actually, maybe even my favorite episode. I think, even with my complaint.
Bold.
I think what I like about it is that I felt like it was really starting to use its science fiction device to really tell its story in an interesting way. Seeing these different timelines kind of play out next to each other, and not even more so than that, but I think more important to the story is the idea that someone is building empathy for other characters because they're watching some parts of their life play out, and what that does. So,
and most importantly, it has the least amount of Lily in it.
I mean, that's also true. But I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting that. And been so headstrong about what he's doing, Forrest is essentially willing to compromise, even though we know he's got a set of morals, he's willing to compromise humanity to prove and sort of keep secret what he's doing. But Katie, in watching what's happening to people around them because of this, is making her maybe question or at least have problems with what he's doing and the people he's affecting.
It's interesting because Forrest has already justified every bad action he takes in that. As far as he's concerned, he's already done them. He's already seen them happen. So therefore, he must do them. So it's fine.
Yeah. Well, it's the whole, theological and psychological kettle of fish in and of itself.
It is. And I think Katie's kind of just been going along with it until now. And she's kind of getting to that point of, but what if? What if there is a multiverse? It's getting to her, I think, and the idea of, but what if we're wrong? And I don't have to do these things.
So, no, really loving what it's getting at. And, to its credit, I mean, as much as there's a lot less scenes in this show than there is a lot of other shows of the same length, it's a very slow-paced, kind of each scene takes its time, but it never feels plodding to me. It never feels like it's always rich with atmosphere, and the direction's always on point, that I never feel like I'm being dragged through mud.
Yeah, exactly.
In the same way that I do in something, say, like The Outsider from HBO, in which case I was crying for help by the time we got to the end of that season.
Oh, by this point of that season, we were like, oh God, please let this pick up again at the end.
Yeah, and there's only 3 left. We're more than halfway through now, so we're getting to some interesting stuff. And I think this will probably play better as a binge, probably once it's all said and done.
It's likely.
But as I said, I'm still enjoying it weekly just now, and I look forward to the next episode. So let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the show and the channel and everything else we do, you can head over to patreon.com/mailedfuzztv and support us for as little as $1 per month and get some bonuses for your trouble. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. And of course, check out our Westworld reviews because they might be of interest if you like devs. So thank you. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?